Hello and welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast, brought to you every week by our sponsors oxygenaddict.com and fuelbykcake.com. I'm joined by my lovely, wonderful co-host Helen Murray. Helen, how are things in triathlon land with you this week?
Triathlon land is good. Things are ticking along nicely. Less than 2 weeks to go now until my last race of the season. And it also means less than 3 weeks to go until I get married. Both things are coming around very quickly.
Only you can get married a week after doing the World Championship 70.3, Helen.
Yeah, it's. I think having both just takes the stress out of each thing or makes life ridiculously stressful. I don't know. I think they're good distractions for each one. So
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I remember leading up to my wedding being very, very stressed indeed. So maybe it is good to have a race to concentrate on.
Yeah, and then I don't worry too much about the race because then you're worrying about a wedding. So it all equals out.
Good stuff. And you did a 50-mile time trial this weekend, didn't you? Tell us about that.
It was just horrible.
Everybody who raced that I coach was on Twitter telling me how horrible I am.
Yeah,
that they've done a 50 and punch me in the face if I do this again or suggest it. And it's like, I never suggested any of this to any of you. You all picked up on it off each other.
Blame someone else.
That Rich just did it because you wanted to do it, and then two of the other guys did it because Rich was doing it, and everyone's going, "Oh, that was the worst thing I've ever done in my life," but it's brilliant. I'm doing another one in 2 weeks' time.
Well, I genuinely hated it, and the course it's not got any major hills in it. It felt like the first mini rise, which is it's not really even a rise, over a little railway. It felt like a mountain within about 5 minutes, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be horrible. And it was just that. It was awful.
The Chelford Railway Bridge did
no,
for
it
you.
It wasn't even the Chelford Railway Bridge. It was Twemlow. It's not even a hill. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to struggle. And then, I don't know. See, I think this is a good one. The psychology of giving up or not giving up, because I thought, well, maybe if I just do one lap, it's a 3-lap course. I thought, if I just do one lap and then I can run off the bike, that'll be okay. And then I thought, no, that's cheating myself. I can't do that. I have to do 2 laps. And then on the second lap, I really did just want to cry, and I could feel tears welling up because I was just like, this is so dreadful. And then even my breathing went to pot because I wanted to cry. And then, when you're like that, so then I wasn't even breathing properly. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, right, I just have to do this 3rd lap, just do it, get on with it. And it will be a rubbish day, but at least you will have done it. And then you can run off the bike, and psychologically you will feel better for then going to Austria in a few weeks' time. Your legs will probably not like it, but mentally it'll probably do you good.
Good on you. So you totally womaned up, did you, and just pushed on through?
Yeah, but all I could...
Hey, I'll tell you what, your time was only a couple of minutes down, and when you felt really good a few weeks ago, so if you can get around and do that feeling awful, I tell you what, good for you. It was the last hard workout before the race. You had a big, long, hard run from the day before in your legs. You were meant to have tired, horrible feeling legs. So that was your Rocky Balboa workout.
Oh.
You can rest up now and eat celery until race day. Have an extra slice of celery.
Shame I made myself feel better with lots of cake and things. So yeah, hey ho, it's done, it's dusted, and we carry on. 2 weeks to go.
That's brilliant. Good stuff. Right, let's talk about our race results from this weekend then, shall we? There's been quite a few things going on around the country and around the world indeed, and I think we should start with Aberfeldy, the Scottish Middle Distance Championships.
Yeah, that's right. So this is, last year it was the British Middle Distance Championships as well, and this year it was just for the Scottish ones. But I've read Nikki Bartlett's blog about the race, and she says it is just such a stunning course, really, really tough, hilly, really cold in the water and out on the bike as well, but it's absolutely beautiful. So it does sound like it's a very decent race to go and do. They had to cut the swim short this year because it was so cold.
Yeah, the water hasn't warmed up anywhere around the country at all this year, has it? It's been freezing.
No.
The top guys here got out in under 10 minutes. Graham Stewart was out in 10 minutes, so they must have shortened it to, it must have been 750,
yep,
was it?
750. Yeah. So the temperature of the loch was around 12 degrees, and then the air temperature was 8.
Oh, welcome to Scotland in the summertime.
So yeah, a little bit chilly, but yeah, it was a win for Graham and for Nikki Bartlett. So Nikki won it last year, won again. That was her third 70.3 in 4 weeks.
Wow.
And for Graham Stewart, he came fourth at Northman, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago?
Was that not last week, or was it? No, it's more than last week, wasn't it? It's a few weeks back. Yeah. But even so superb effort there. Graham Stewart taking it out in 4:04. Fergus Roberts in second. Peter Fennick in third. And on the ladies' side, as you said, we had Nikki Bartlett won it from.
It was Natalie Milne in second. And then she did it 4:33, and then third female was Kirsty Anderson.
There we go, from Team Dillon. So good race in there. Always a difficult one, isn't it, when the weather shortens the swim and makes it really short. On the one hand, you're thinking, well, I'm certainly thinking, happy days. But you almost feel like you're not getting your money's worth, aren't you?
Yeah, and you think, well, does it really count if the swim was short? You sort of think, I'll have to come back and do it next year when the swim is the full distance.
And if you're a strong swimmer, it really hurts you. You can't put any time into anyone in 10 minutes, can you?
No. And when you were speaking to the, he's like the big boss for Ironman UK and Ireland, Kevin.
Oh yeah,
Stewart.
Kevin Stewart.
And you were trying to say to him, hey, how about an Ironman in Scotland? And I think that was part of the problem, or that would potentially be part of the problem, wouldn't it? He did say, you have to have somewhere which you're not going to have to shorten the swim every single year.
So. Yeah, it's a difficult call, isn't it? I think if you're in a place like New Zealand where you get unlucky weather once every 7 or 8 years, then that's one thing. But I think maybe looking at this, they're constantly battling. They're trying to get water warm enough to even hold a half in. Yeah. I think Keltman's always shortened as well, isn't it? And that's always really freezing cold. So what a shame, though. I think they could put some water heaters in.
Well, they in the Winter Olympics, which are going to be in China, it's somewhere that like barely has any snow, so they're going to have to use snow cannons there. So why not start heating up water and lochs and lakes?
You need one of those places that's got a what they call a power station nearby where they pump the cooling water out. There you go, nice warm water there. Right, so that was the Aberfeldy half Ironman. Next up, we had the Monster Middle, which was taken out by Sam Village on the men's side, and a shout out to Lucy Gossage, who was only 3 minutes behind the overall win, so she's obviously flying still, isn't she?
Yeah, she was second overall, wasn't she?
She was, yeah, that's brilliant performance from her.
Yeah, it's a local race to her. She came in ahead of Lucy Custance, and then third female was Yvette Grice. So
good to see Yvette Grice out racing again. I wonder if she's taken a bit of a break, because she won Ironman UK a few years ago, didn't she?
Yeah, and I know she had raced Lucy on this course, I don't know, quite a few years ago. And I imagine it was closer than yesterday or than over the weekend. Yeah, because Lucy is absolutely flying. So
she's on fire. So I'd love to see her do really well at Kona. I really would. I know she said sort of like, I've got no chance. I don't perform well in the heat, but I'd love it if she could go out there and put a really good performance together, because I think she's a quality athlete. And I think she's one of those athletes who would really benefit if the World Championships got moved around from place to place every year and you didn't have to race in the hideous heat and humidity.
Definitely. And it would almost, it would just be a superb way, because of perhaps going back into medicine at some point, it would be an awesome way to sort of say, yep, you know what, and really stamp it down.
Cap the career, as it were.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, good for her. Right, other races around the world. We had British success with the lovely Emma Pooley winning Embrunman in France, didn't we? Have you heard of Embrunman before?
Now, I've heard of it, and it is another kind of mental one, isn't it, which has got big, huge mountains in it.
Absolutely full on, yeah. It's a proper Tour de France style 2 or 3 massive mountain cols. And the thing that's really interesting about it is it's got really, really super good prize money.
Oh.
It's one of those ones where you can't understand why more pros don't go and race. And I read that Romain Guillaume was going to go, and he put a tweet out that in my pidgin French, I'm sort of read as saying, I really wanted to race because I want to sort of go and win it for years and years and make it my race, but I've decided that I've got a really good chance for Kona this year, and that's where all my eggs are going in that basket. So he pulled out a few days before. But €25,000 for the winner of this race.
That really would be tempting, wouldn't it?
So more than most. I mean, I can't find the damn results on the men's side. All I found is the Try 24/7 report that said Emma Pooley won the women's race and Joel Jameson was in 7th. But get this, we've been talking about the old equality of the sexes recently.
Yeah.
If you're a bloke and you come first, you get 25 grand, and if you're a woman, you only get 18 grand.
Now, how does that work? Because surely it is, like in most triathlons, it is exactly the same course, and everyone...
Yep. You haven't got that women's tennis argument of, well, they play less sets. That's nonsense. Sort it out, Embrunman.
That must be one of the only triathlons which pays differently, surely.
Yeah, you'd think so. And men pay 9 deep, women pay 6 deep. Oh. So, bit harsh, I think, to be honest there, Embrunman. You need to raise your game a bit and get into the new millennium. But Joel will have taken €4,000 home for 7th place. So that's a nice little payday, isn't it? That'll pay for a summer in the Alps.
Wow, that is really not bad, is it?
Yeah, I know that the Baylisses used to go and do this pretty regularly. They used to go and get nice paychecks, not always winning it, but certainly being up there. I think Bella won it a few times.
Yeah.
But you can imagine if you're a couple who race like that, and
you go and do well,
second and one's win, you go home with €30,000 in your pocket.
Good weekend out.
It's half a year's wages, that, isn't it?
Exactly. Is it one of those ones that Brett Sutton would have encouraged his athletes to do? Because he used to get a lot of them doing Alpe d'Huez, didn't he? And
that's exactly it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, good stuff.
Would you be tempted with that one, Rob?
As always, one of the all-time bucket list races. This for me would be up there ahead of Norseman, because I think Norseman's a bit too cold and scary.
Okay, interesting. What about Alpe d'Huez?
Yeah, no, Alpe d'Huez is on my list of races I have entered and not managed to race because of injury.
Oh.
I've been on the entry list for Alpe d'Huez a few years ago and unfortunately fell through.
Oh. Which list is longer? The one which your bucket list, or the one which you have hoped to do but then not been able to through injury?
Well, I've got the bucket list and I've managed to get entries for a lot of them. That's the thing. The intention's been there. It's not like I sit here just entering the Wilmslow Triathlon every year. I have hunted the cool races out in the past. Never damn well got to do a lot of them though.
Now, we should mention another Brit who did very, very well this weekend. Rachel Joyce. She's had a bit of a tricky season this year because she has been injured, but she was returning this weekend at Timberman, 70.3. She came away with 3rd. She had the fastest swim. She had the fastest run as well. But she got a penalty on the bike. First ever penalty. And she said it was because of a pro male. And she's and she's one of the people to campaign so much for equality at Kona and getting the equal number of starts for men and women. So she got a drafting penalty on the bike.
You got to imagine if she's complaining about it, maybe a pro man's overtaken her and pulled in front of her.
Yep. And you'd imagine it would have been...
She's been judged to not drop out of the draft zone fast enough.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you? Yep. You'd imagine that was...
And it would have been one of the... sort of a slower pro man, wouldn't it?
Or maybe a slower swimmer than her, because she's a damn good swimmer, isn't she?
Yeah, she was first out of the water.
I'd love to talk to Joycey and get her on the show. Maybe when we're a bit bigger, Helen.
I reckon we can get... Yeah, we can...
Helen, now Timberman is on my bucket list, and I'll tell you why. Because years ago, when I was a studie and I was working in summer camps, our summer camp was on that lake, and the start of Timberman used to start just across the water. It was like a a half-mile stretch of water to the state beach on the other side, and you could see them setting up for it, and you could see all these lunatics swimming out at 6 in the morning. And this was back before it was even brought up as a 70.3. It just used to be called Timberman.
Oh, nice.
But it was one of the original races in the US that had slots for Kona.
Wow.
Back in the days when you could qualify for Kona at a half. This must be back in when was the last time I was there? 2003.
And you could go.
So the first year I raced Ironman, yeah, you could qualify for Kona at some 70.3 still, and that was one of them. So I remember thinking, oh, I'd love to do this race, and it's still on my list of, wouldn't it be cool? In fact, I was just thinking today, I was out for my traditional Monday ride, my traditional having quit my job and now I can ride on a Monday. I was thinking, wouldn't it be great to organise a training camp, base it in that old summer camp, and you could swim in the lake there and have the great camp food and stay for relatively inexpensively in the place, and then go and do Timberman at the end of the training camp. Wouldn't it be ace?
Yeah. If you set that up,
maybe next year.
Put me,
set it up, yeah.
Put me on the list. That sounds good.
Any listeners interested? If you're interested in the training camp in America next summer, let me know. We get a few numbers together. This one might fly.
And now Rob, just sort of north of there, quite a bit north, was
just slightly north of New Hampshire.
Yeah, very, very north. We had Mont Tremblant going on. We had an Ironman over in Mont Tremblant.
Say it again, Helen. Use the accent.
Mont Tremblant is what they'd call it.
Very impressive.
And now this one just sort of jumped out at me because Liz Blatchford was second, right? Liz Blatchford used to race for GB, now definitely racing for Australia, and she was only 50 seconds off first. 50 seconds!
50 seconds off the win, and it looks like as well, she was 9 minutes down off the bike, and she ran her down.
It was Mary Beth Ellis who won, wasn't it?
Yeah, ran Mary Beth Ellis down. She still had 4 minutes of the lead at 38k, so she took a minute a k out of her over the last 4k. Now, you've got to wonder whether Mary Beth Ellis was having the kind of race where she just controlled it and she knew she had the time and she just did enough to win, or whether it was one of those absolutely on the rivet.
And just struggling and slowing down.
Actually, it says here in the Slow Twitch report, after a few tense minutes without an update, Ellis crossed the line just 50 seconds ahead. So it doesn't sound like she was enjoying finding out much, does it?
No. Oh goodness, no. But I got the impression that Liz Blatchford just wouldn't have seen it all day, and that's when it's really weird. So you're thinking, right, well, someone's ahead of me, but you just don't know maybe how far ahead they are, and that's what's tricky, I think.
50 seconds is probably, what's that, 200 metres of running. Oh, so she'll see her. She'll be seeing her in the distance.
She said she didn't see her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, didn't see her.
Breaks your heart to come over the line and not know, hey? Boy, oh boy. Shout out as well to Laura Siddle in 9:52, taking 9th place there.
Fantastic. And
she must be racing pro as well.
Yep, she's racing pro. This is her first full season racing pro. She's based over with the Purple Patch and Matt Dixon over in the States.
Ah, cool. Good. So that's a solid result, isn't it? A 9th place.
Yeah.
And no other British interest there. So we had Mary Beth Ellis in first, 9:09.05. Liz Blatchford, 9:09.55. Lisa Roberts in 9:13. And on the men's side, we had Jordan Rapp in 8:17. My old favourite Justin Dare in second in 8:36. Paul Ambrose in third in 8:38. Now I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back to the Timberman results because I noticed this on the results page.
Go on.
We read out about Joycey in third. Yep. She was behind Angela Neath and Heather Jackson. Yep. But listen to this for a stacked men's field. Andy Potts took it out.
Yeah.
Tim O'Donnell in second. Yep. Cam Dye in third. But then also in the top 15 we had Trevor Wurtell, Paul Matthews, Dylan McNeese, Richie Cunningham, Braden Curry, Mark Bowstead. All these guys all racing in the same race.
It's crazy, but we've said this before. Like, how does it work out that some will go to, you know?
Do you think these are the guys who are all chasing the points for the last slots for Kona? This is it must be one of the last qualifying races, mustn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. It
must be. It must be that they're all chasing those extra points for Kona.
To improve their Outstanding.
You know what we need, mate, is a stato. We need someone who's going to fill us in on all the points and point out to us, like, this race has got loads of points and that's why people are doing it, because you and I are never going to do that, are we?
No, because neither of us.
We're never going to sit into the early hours and work out the statistics.
No. Well, if anyone, wants to be our stato, feel free.
Job vacancy, there you go.
Get in touch with us.
Pays non-existent, but Helen will make you some flapjack at the next race.
You can get in touch with us. Always you can get in touch with us. We are on Twitter at Cup of Tri. And if you have a question, because we will be doing Coach's Couch in a moment, and you can always email a question about coaching through to Rob. That's Coach Rob Wilby at oxygenaddict.com. Now, talking of one thing on Twitter, Kit Walker got in touch and saying, catching up on Cup of Tri on this morning's run. And then they've suggested for, we were talking about sea swimming the other week. And
somebody wanted to swim down in Weymouth, didn't they?
Yeah, so they've suggested get in touch with Bustin Skin, right? And at Bustin Skin, they are a triathlon club located in and around Weymouth. So if you get in touch with them, they might be able to help you.
Good call. There we are, the local club that we talked of, and they put on a half Ironman down there as well, or they certainly used to for many years. I wonder if it still goes now. Challenger on the scene. Now, talking of our Twitters, followers and things, this is our emotional appeal to our readers here, or to our listeners. We'd like to help spread the word about the Cup of Tri. We've been growing really well for the past 6 months. Believe it or not, Hells, we've been over 6 months now, haven't we?
Yeah.
If you could help us out in any way by either retweeting or re-Facebooking every time we put an update on, every time a new show goes out. If you've got a friend at your club who you think would enjoy the show and you can send a link to them, it'd be very, very much appreciated. Now, I've only recently, Helen, become a grown-up and got acquainted with the world of social media, as you know. And the other week I put a blog out about having left teaching and gone full-time on the old triathlon coaching. Yep. And it blew my mind that the next morning, 1,200 people, 1,200 people had shared the blog with other people. And I couldn't believe it. It's like, power, it's so amazing, that people will go, do you know, I've read this and my mate's a teacher and was having a bad time and he's trying to get out. And so I was wondering if people could do that for us and spread it around about the Cup of Tri podcast, because we'd love to get our advertiser numbers up there, because who knows, we might even be able to start to make a little bit of a living by having somebody advertise on our show one day, mightn't we? That'd be pretty cool.
Might be enough. Without getting enough for a spare inner tube.
And somebody wrote through, let me see if I can find this, somebody called 5 Sticker Rides and said, are you on Stitcher? Now, we've always been on iTunes, but apparently there's this one called Stitcher as well. So if you're not a listener on the old Apple network, Stitcher work for the Windows phones and Android and stuff. So there you go, Helen. We're now on another distribution channel, apparently. So thanks for 5 Sticker Rides for throwing it up to me. It wasn't hard at all, even with my limited ability to get it up and listed on there. So pretty cool, actually. That's good.
Now, one thing I did put up on Twitter was a photo from, we mentioned it before, Monster Racing's middle distance. And it was a picture of the swim start, which had a load of cows in and around the river. So there's just these pictures of orange swim hats with a cow in the river too. Have a look at it.
Pretty cool. That might have to be our photo that we use this week for the podcast as it goes out. Swimmers with the cow.
Yeah. Now, Rob, what about Coach's Couch this week? We talked last week, didn't we, about power on the bike and the test that you can do, and we also mentioned about if you still don't have a power meter like me, then doing a similar test and kind of working towards your heart rate. But we were going to talk a little bit more, weren't we, about the power and the heart rate.
Yes, we'll talk more about power today. This is kind of your Power 101, how to ride and train with power, basically. This issue is going to be sponsored by Hamish Shaw, Coach Hamish Shaw, the swim analyst for Oxygen Addict. He, as you know, Hells, does loads of underwater video analysis for me, and he's really good at it, and he's got some more slots just opened up. So if you're interested, check on over at oxygenaddict.com under the swim analysis tab. Hamish has got his availability there, and if you fancy having a video swim analysis with him, get in quick, because they tend to disappear quickly and the slots are fairly limited. Okay, so this week's Power 101. Hells, what would your questions be about power if if you just got yourself a power meter and you were going out for your ride, what would you be thinking? What would you want to know?
First of all, what on earth should I be aiming for in my initial, first time it was on there? What power do I aim for?
Cool. Great question. Now, there's an old joke about power meters. I knew a friend who worked for one of the big companies who first brought out one of the power meters, and he said that within, I probably shouldn't say this on air, within the company, they used to refer to their power meter as the random number generator. And I had one of these first power meters, and you put it on, and honestly, you'd look at the number and it would go 27, 432, 1027, 48, 127. It'd just go up and down every single second. And at first you thought, well, the power meter is clearly broken because it's spitting out just random numbers. But what we've got to understand with power is, as you press down on the pedal, that power that your leg is putting out is changing every single millisecond. Mm-hmm. And so you got to have a clever little computer to interpret the data for you, because your brain just can't do it fast enough. And even to this day, if you've got your Garmin on there and it's displaying, it displays it in little bursts of power essentially. So if you're looking at the 1 second power average, that number will jump around all over the place and it's almost unusable. So with your magic little Garmin device, other GPS devices are available, you can set up lots of little data fields on there that will tell you the power over different periods of time. So you can have that 1 second power, which is basically exactly what's happening every second. You can have a 3 second average, a 10-second average, a 30-second average, an average over the last lap that you've pressed on the lap function. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
So the best numbers to use, I've found, to set up on your Garmin are, have it so you can see 3 second average, 10-second average, and normalized power for that lap that you're on. So as you're riding around, the 3 second power will move around quite a lot still. So if you go up a hill and you've got to kind of push harder, that number is going to jump about a bit. The 10-second power is quite a good brain ready number that you can look at and think, okay, it doesn't change very much from second to second is what I'm getting at. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, so you want numbers that your brain can easily understand. That's the first thing. The second tip I'm going to give you is, when you first put the power meter on your bike, for the first 2 weeks, just go out and ride with it. Don't worry about what your threshold power is. Don't worry about what your numbers are doing relative to your threshold power. Just go out and ride and watch what happens on the screen as you're riding. Because everybody tells you, as you go around a corner and you accelerate, you're going to put out loads more power without realizing it. And when you go up a hill, you'll put out loads more power without realizing it. But until you actually see those numbers on the screen, you can't quite believe how big the number jumps are going to be.
Okay. So
for someone like me, I'll give you some ballpark figures here. My threshold at the moment is about 250. So riding around on a cruisy ride with my mates, I'm about, I don't know, let's say 200 watts to make the numbers nice and easy. If I come to a Chelford bridge going over the railway, a kind of humpback bridge that lasts 50 meters, and I stay in the same gear and I pop out of the saddle, and as we all do on a club ride, my power numbers will probably jump from 200 watts to 350. Mm-hmm. So it's almost doubled the power. I've shot straight through threshold, probably past my VO2 max watts for that 10-15 second interval.
Yep.
So it just gives you this idea that what you feel that you're doing isn't actually what you're doing. The power that you're using up, you don't realize that you're sort of using these tiny bursts but of massive power. And Joe Friel uses this phrase, burning matches. It describes your energy supply as a book of matches. And every time you put one of those little bursts in, you surge out of a corner, you surge over a hill, you're lighting a match. And that's a match you're never going to get back again. So the first thing that the power meter is going to do is to teach you how important it is to change up a couple of gears when you come to a hill, to change up a couple of gears as you come into a sharp corner, and to not ride like a Tour de France cyclist. You don't accelerate really hard out of corners. You don't accelerate really hard on a climb, because you're a triathlete trying to save your energy reserves for the run rather than a Tour de France contender trying to burn somebody off your wheel, essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's useful.
There we go. And from there, then after a couple of weeks, you plug in your threshold number. Now, the Garmin's got a funky little feature on that. Once you've told it what your threshold number is, you can set up one of the data fields on the Garmin to tell you which power zone you're riding in. And it'll break each zone down into like a decimal point. So it'll say you're riding at 3.4, 3.5. So that gives you an idea of where you are in that power zone. So that's so you don't have to do the maths as you're riding along. You don't have to keep in
That's
your head.
helpful. Yep, because that
Exactly.
gets a bit
Top of
tricky.
zone 2 is 223 watts and zone 3 is 200, because you'd go nuts trying to remember all that information.
Yep.
Okay. So you get your zones, and from that point in, basically every ride that you do has a purpose, and you're going to make your body do the thing that is going to get the most purpose out of that ride for the least amount of wasted matches and the least amount of wasted energy. So if your coach sends you out for a recovery ride and the top of your recovery zone is 150 watts, you're not going to do any spikes over 150 watts. Even if somebody chases past you wearing a Liverpool football shirt, you're not going to accelerate after them because that ride has a purpose. Okay.
Yeah. So my other question would be, with a simple kind of introduction to power meters, should you go and use it on every single ride?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think the way things like, and a little plug for Training Peaks here again, the way that it all integrates these days, as I get back in from a ride, my Garmin, when I press the stop key, automatically links to Training Peaks using my phone as a Bluetooth uplink. And so by the time I've got my clothes off and I'm in the shower, it's uploaded the power file into Training Peaks, into the right day, into the actual session that's dropped in on there, and it's ready for analysis by the coach. So a year ago, it used to be this big pain in the arse thing of taking your Garmin off the computer, plugging it in, plug it into the computer, find the file, drag and drop, all that nonsense. Now it all happens auto. It's brilliant. I can't overstate how amazing it is if you've got one of the swanky Garmins that does the Bluetooth upload through a phone. So that's absolutely great. You set it up once and it pretty much works 9 times out of 10. So yeah, use it every single ride, and the cool thing that will do is it keeps a track of all of your training stress across the week. And it's the same with, using your heart rate monitor or your GPS when you run. Yep. The more data that you gather, the more accurate information your coach is going to get. And so if I've got an athlete who wears a device for everything, including swimming, their training stress graph is going to be completely accurate every single week. And we can tell if they're getting really, really tired. Or more to the point, if they say, God, you know what, I'm completely wiped out this week. You have a quick glance at their training stress graph and it becomes obvious, all right, when they get to this level of training stress, you need to back them off and give them some recovery. So, yeah, I'd use it on all the rides that you're out there on.
Fantastic. So that was a very good Coach's Couch this week. Again, if you've got a question for Rob, just get in touch. It's Coach Rob Wilby at oxygenaddict.com, or you can tweet us at Cup of Tri. And I should just say, I did meet 2 people on Saturday at the time trial. I met Chris Standage. Very nice to meet him. Nice. And I met Beth Hughes as well, who will be racing in the, I think she's the 35 to 39 category at the 70.3 World Champs in Austria. So good to meet both of them. And
2 friendly faces you'll be seeing out there then, won't it?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Now listen, one last thing on power meters before we go off, and readers can help us out a little bit here. I've set up a clever thing, Helen, called an affiliate link, which means if people buy stuff through certain shops, we get a little percentage for the show. And if you're interested in buying a power meter at the moment, Merlin Cycles have got really, really sweet deals on Stages power meters. I had them in the show notes last week. I'll have it in this week as well. I think they've got them reduced down to £400 for Ultegra, £450 for Dura-Race, and that's reduced down from sort of 700 and 900 quid. So almost half price, really. Real bargain. If you click on the link in our show notes, it'll take you to Merlin Cycles. And because you've clicked on that link, it's linked to our little affiliate advertising page, and we'll get a little percentage if you buy anything at all over the next month. So fill your boots, buy new stuff, knowing that you're paying for the ingredients for Helen's new flapjacks. Right, last things before we finish then, mate. Coming up this weekend, we have Ironman Copenhagen, Ironman Japan, 70.3 Budapest. I have an athlete racing there, actually. Stepan, good luck there, mate. And it's ITU Sweden as well, so there's quite a bit of racing going on, isn't there?
There is a load of racing going on. And we should also say get well soon to Phil Graves. He helped get a gold at the European Games in Baku for Team GB, didn't he? But
he did, yeah.
Poor Phil, he's got Achilles tendinopathy in both Achilles.
Oh, poor guy.
So that's a big get well soon.
Oh, mate, I'm feeling your pain, Phil. That's what I'm having treatment for at the minute. Helen, you've got to imagine this. The only way to get through it is to have your Achilles tendon rubbed. And any time anybody tickles a feather against your Achilles tendon, it feels as though you've been punched in the balls. So the cure really is worse than the injury.
Oh,
Phil, I feel for you. I'm saying Phil, I don't even know him. It sounds like we're best mates, doesn't it? Um, yeah, it's an awful injury to have. So get well soon, Phil. It'd be great to have him at the Olympics working the team role there, wouldn't it?
yeah, yeah. If he can do what he did in
Would
Baku, it'd
indeed.
be incredible.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of incredible, our interview of this week for this week is Mark Livesey, other half of Caroline Livesey. I'm not going to say better half because Caroline's clearly the better half, isn't she? Um, Mark Livesey, great athlete in the over 40s category now. He has been around in the sport for a long, long time since I started racing way back when, back in 2002. Mark was winning Olympic distance stuff, and he just recently finished third at the Outlaw, so he's still doing it to a very high standard indeed. We go through a lot of his results on the podcast, so I won't spoil it there, but we'll hand over to Mark for an interview here. Helen, thanks very much for coming on and doing your usual magic with me. It's been lovely to talk to you.
A pleasure. And remember, do tweet about it, do share it. We'll appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely. And we'll go over now to our interview with Mark Livesey. Mark Livesey, welcome to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. I've done a couple of training sessions today after having a week off, just relaxing. Yeah.
Good man. And I tell you what, you've earned some relaxation time after your performance at the Outlaw, haven't you? Third overall, mate. You must be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, no, it was a good race. I wanted to go there to win. Although a lot of people would have rolled their eyes at that sort of statement. But there's some good athletes on the start line, and I knew I was just as good as them, if not better. And on the day, I came third. I managed to run onto the podium, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, I'll take third from that. Disappointing that I didn't get a little bit higher up, a bit closer to Craig. But the dynamic of the race for Craig and the dynamic for my race were totally different.
Yeah, let's talk us through that. Talk us through
yeah.
your race. Talk us through the swim, the bike, and the run. How did it all work for you?
I'm swimming quite well, and I knew I'd be around about 56 minutes. Because it's an accurate course at the Outlaw. I mean, they're doing something wrong if they don't get that right in that bit of water. But
yeah.
So I found myself isolated after about 400 or 500 meters, and then I pretty much swam on my own. I mean, Craig is he's a phenomenal swimmer. I can hold his feet for 200 meters if I wanted to. So I knew if I got out of the water between sort of 5-6 minutes behind him, then I could ride strong and catch him up, because I knew I'm riding just as well, if not better, than Craig is, because we share a bit of data on Exhale. Anyway, so when I got out of the water at 56 minutes, somebody shouted to me, Craig is about 5-6 minutes up the road. I didn't panic too much. I thought, well, okay, that's palatable. I can deal with that. But again, I found myself on the bike on my own, which doesn't normally happen in Ironman events. Your problem with Ironman events is trying to find a little bit of space and not get caught up in the sort of the drafting fiascos that occur. So to ride, I would say 75% of the ride was on my own, and it's a mental battle, and at times it gets boring. And I was getting bored on the bike, dare I say it, when you're on your own. Tom Vickery joined me for a while. Me and him rode around for about an hour. And probably about 100k in, I just sensed that Tom wasn't feeling great. And so I decided to go. And I looked around and I couldn't see him. So I'd assumed that he'd punctured, or he just had an issue. So then, I just cracked on, and the last 40k were a bit of a battle. I had a bit of a wobble nutrition wise, and I tried a new thing this time, and I'm recommending it to my athletes. Is I use baby food. You know the
Interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard that from a couple of people.
So for me, it's not a case of whenever I've popped on a race, it's always to do with nutrition. It's never a physical issue. I'm strong, but I pop because I've just run out of fuel, and that's always my biggest worry. And so at 140k, I was thinking, "Ooh, I'm recognising some signs here." So I got the emergency baby food out, and down
Man,
it and down it
I'm
went.
picturing you at the side of the road with a little spoon and a little
No,
jar in
no,
your pocket.
no. Well, you don't. Well, they have them in squeezy bottles now with a little top that you can just flick off. So it's just
Yeah,
like
like those little Ella's pouches or something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
So it's just the same as the normal energy gel, but just bigger and a higher. It has a higher complex carb um, contents in it, and it's actually savoury, which is quite nice when you're taking sugar on
Yeah,
all
total
day.
change of taste, isn't it?
Yeah, so and it's designed for baby's stomach, so it's easily absorbed. And after about, I reckon about 20 minutes, I felt okay again. Uh, and then I got off on the bike, and somebody shouted to me. I think I was seventh or eighth off the bike, and Craig was 20 minutes up the road, and Harry was a little bit further. And I knew Harry wasn't going to do the whole race because he's still recovering from his foot injury. He broke his toe out running about a couple of months ago,
Mm.
which was a bit unfortunate. So I knew he was going to sort of pull out, but I knew 20 minutes was a massive ask to catch Craigie up. That said, nothing's over until you cross the finishing line, and the chances are, there was always a good chance that Craig might pop. So I was still in the game. It's who dies, it's who dies the slowest on the marathon.
Who
Um,
slows down the least, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
and Craig nailed it. He had a great race, and I saw him coming down the first lap, and we gave each other a high five, and I congratulated him, said, well done, you're looking good, and and I like Craig, I get on him really well, and I respect him as an athlete, and for 43, you know, he's proving to everybody in our age group, sort of, mid 40s, that actually you can still produce the goods. So I was really pleased for him when he actually held his marathon together and crossed the line at an 8:50, which on any other course, that's a super quick time because the Outlaw ain't quick, the bike course ain't
It's
quick. It's soggy,
Well, I think
heavy.
he rode a four. Did he ride a 4:39? Is that right from memory? It was a scorching bike time.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he did. He nailed the bike. So yeah, no, he had a great race. So and I'm really pleased for him when he finished. And I mean, I hung on. Caroline was giving me splits, which was useful because that's another thing that a lot of the elites get frustrated with is, I mean, Joe Skipper's a prime example in Texas. When I was watching the footage, Joe was running. Basically, he was running scared, so to speak, because he wasn't getting any feedback from anybody. He wasn't,
Yeah,
although he was in the lead. Nobody, not even the commentary or anybody, was reeling any information back to him, saying, "Right, Joe, you are running at this speed. The guy in second is running at this speed. You've got so many miles left. He will catch you at this point, or he won't catch you at this point." And poor Joe was screaming out for information, and nobody was giving him anything. But I had Caroline telling me that I was catching people up, and after I think 10 miles, I was fourth or fifth. And then Caroline told me that fourth and fifth weren't looking great. Fourth was walking, third was looking really bad, and I worked great. But when you get that information, then the reward is you're actually picking people off. So I managed to catch who's third? Is it? He's coming up to race the Rubicon. Actually, is it? Who was it? Dally? Oh, Alexander. That's who it was. Yeah. And I caught Carl up at about, I would say about 18, 19 miles, and he was very magnanimous and graceful when I crossed him, and he gave me some encouragement. and then I'm in third. I'm thinking, right, I've got to hold this now, and then I'm worried about who's catching me. So
Yeah.
and that's the real, when you've caught other athletes up, and there's athletes everywhere, and I'm screaming at Caroline saying, how's fourth looking, and she doesn't know, because she doesn't know who's in fourth, because there's athletes everywhere. So I just had to run blind, and the last 6 miles, that's just horrible. It's never nice.
Not pretty for anybody, is it, at that point?
No, I mean, and when some of my elite athletes to my novice athletes, it hurts just the same for everybody. It's just as painful. It's whether or not you can suck it up and sort of crack on. So yeah, and running around that lake, that's tough. As flat as it is, when you can see the curvature of the earth,
It's a long way, isn't it? Yeah.
Even
2 kilometers up and down yeah, man.
When you're doing the national relays and you're only sprinting around it for 5K, it's tough then. And you think, Jesus Christ, I've got to run around this twice at the end of a marathon. Yeah, that tests you. That tests your resolve, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So listen, for people who are kind of newish to the sport, you've been around for pretty much as long as the sport's been around. Now, I kicked into triathlon about 2002, and I clearly remember reading your name in 220 magazine pretty much every single month, winning this, sort of Olympic distance champion things in pretty much every race distance. So you've been really, really consistent over a very long period of time, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I started the sport by accident, really. A friend of mine just said, "Oh, Mark, you'd be good at this," and then literally one race, and that was it. And it was all consuming, really. In probably late 90s, I think I was around about 25, and I wasn't a great swimmer, runner, or biker. In fact, I never cycled a bike in my life. But for a period when I was in the army doing standard distance and sprint, I got okay at it. I was racing at elite level, not on the ITU circuit or anything like that. But I was. I remember one year, for me, just getting on the elite start was that was all I need. That's what I wanted to achieve. And I remember being on the start line with Spencer Smith at the London Triathlon. Former world champion. He stood next to you, and I'm in the swim start. We're all going into the swim, and there he is, and I'm next to him racing alongside Spencer, who at the time had only just retired, about 3 or 4 years from the top end when it went sort of draft legal, and he moved to the longer stuff. But memories like that, and racing with Harry Wiltshire as well when we were with Total Fitness Bath for a while. When Harry was super quick and still is, but he was fast, at the short stuff, very fast. So I had some good fun memories, and racing, at Ellesmere and Bournemouth and Liverpool and national champs and all that kind of stuff, and mixing it around. Yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, cracking. I think I raced Ellesmere one year when you did either won it or did very, very well. Back in.
I've won that one. Yeah, I won that. Yeah, so that's
2004, 5, 6 ish around then. Was it, Ben?
I think I won it by about 11 seconds. But it's nice, that race, because I mean, back in the day, Ellesmere was the venue for standard, and all the big hitters went there. Tim Dawn. Andrew Johns, all these boys were there. Stewie Hayes, I think, has raced up there as well. And so on the Roll of Honour, it dilutes over the years, because obviously the pros they didn't use that race. But I'm on the Roll of Honour, and there's some prestigious names on that list. I think Chrissy Wellington's on that list as well as a female winner. I'm not sure.
Nice. Yeah, nice place to have your name on the list, isn't it?
No, it was. It's a great venue. That venue. It's a good little race, that one. It's 2004, I think, 2005 it might have been. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. So obviously now you've moved on to sort of full-time coaching and developing your Exhale training and coaching software. Talk us through that a little bit. How how things been sort of moving into the business world once you left the army?
So I never really made a conscious decision of designing a coaching platform or really considering my main energies going into coaching. It just sort of happened. And I think, I don't know, the experience that I've gained in the army has molded me into a certain type of individual. And some guys really are really receptive to that, no nonsense approach. It's going really well. I mean, I've just had a really good chat with Richie Nichols yesterday. Who's a super chap, proper old school attitude to training, which I love. And he's getting on board now, so it's nice to have him on board. I've got Will Clark now. He loves it. Obviously, I've had Joe Skipper using it for the last 18 months. I've had Amy Forshaw. Lucy Gossage has been using it for 2 years. She loves it. I'm just getting more and more people on board. I've had an email actually off the national Swiss coach for triathlon a couple of days ago. He emailed me, so he wants to have a look at it. So word spreading, which is great. Which is great. So,
and you offer a free trial of it, don't you, for people who want to have a go at that? What's the web address of the
It's www.trainexhale.com. So that's with an X and X-ray.
Good stuff. Now, the other thing Caroline told us about when we interviewed her for the interview that was on last week's show is all about your fantastic triathlon festival, the Rubicon, and is it the Trident, the Olympic distance one?
Yeah, so last year we did, I split the races up. But this year I decided to have it over one weekend. And the beauty with Newby Hall, which is a private stately home essentially in North Yorkshire, is I can deliver a children's race on tarmac on a fully closed road. And
brilliant. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, to get children to ride their racing bikes, and not racing bikes, just little pink, simple bikes from Alpha's 50 quid for the little 8-year-olds, but to give them the sense of adventure, because I purposely tell the parents not to follow the children around this 2-kilometre course that goes around the grounds of Newby Hall. I have a few stewards making sure that kids are safe, but they're pretty much in the backdrop because I want to give the children that sense of unknown outcome and that sense of adventure and sense of achievement. And they only get that if you expose them to an element of danger and risk. Now, for them, for a child, they feel that risk, but it's great for their development. It's great for their confidence. But I know the parents know that actually the safest place they'll be is on that stretch of road or in the water when they're swimming in the open water. And it's just, for me, last year the kids were just brilliant. The little 8-year-olds swimming in the river and then screaming out to transition was just brilliant. I got some great pictures of the wee ones racing.
Just sounds brilliant.
It
really
great,
does.
great fun. Really, really, you just smile all evening watching them screaming around.
Yeah. And so that race is on the Saturday, is it? And then
that's the Saturday 29th.
The Olympic.
Yeah.
The Olympic and the half Ironman are on the Sunday.
Yeah. So I have the Rubicon, which I think I've got about 550 people racing now for that, and then an hour later I have a standard distance race. So they'll go screaming around the course an hour later after the middle distance guys. But again, the way I work it now is that the guys actually walk to the start of the swim. It's probably about 1,200 meters upstream, and it's a big, wide, fat river. And I get the drones up, and I have a piper playing them into the water. And the spectacle of these swimmers going downstream and then coming out up this beautifully manicured, award-winning garden, which the owners let the athletes come screaming out up through his prized possession. Basically, this is what people come to see, is the garden. It's just amazing.
Oh, it sounds
and that's
great.
one of the reasons that so many people are coming back to the race. I've had more. There's more in this race than the national British Middle Distance Championships in Bala, and there was more. I had more than the English champs, which was, I can't remember this year, but I knew that because I look at the stats, I look at the numbers and entries, and I'm knocking on the door now. I'm now rivaling the Vitruvian, which is great, because there'll be a time now in the next couple of years where athletes will be discussing what middle distance race they're going to be doing in August, end of August, September, and the discussion will be, which race are you doing, the Vitruvian or the Rubicon? That's the question that they'll be asking each other. Are you a Vit man,
Because
or are
of
you a
course
Rubicon man?
you are on the same weekend, aren't you?
Same weekend, yeah. And people said to me, "Oh, Mike, you should do it on the same day as the Vit." And I said, "Well, that's the whole point. Is that I'm creating another better race, as far as I'm concerned, than the Vitruvian, because my venue is better, and that's why people are coming to it, and it's cheaper, and they get a lot more
And it
from the
sounds
Vit."
like the bike course there is a super fast out and back. It's on the A. Am I right in saying it's the A1 up in Yorkshire?
Well, some of it's the first 10K is quite, I won't say technical, but you have to think. It's some good B roads, but it does then take you onto the old A1, which is now the A168, which all the cycle clubs around the area will know it really well because it's where they do all the time trialing. But
I was going to say,
essentially,
is that the super
yeah,
quick course up there? Yeah, I've had a few pals ride over there
yeah.
actually. That makes a lot of sense, Mark.
But the
And
beauty
so
of the
anyone who's
road is,
hunting out a
yeah,
scorching fast bike
yeah, yeah.
split,
It's
and there'll be no
quite
traffic on it, right? Because
exactly because
it's
they're all on the A1. So there's no traffic on it
go.
because they're all on the A1. And two, that it's a super wide road anyway, um, and it's super flat. I think there's about 50 meters of elevation, so you can rip it up. I mean, Joe um, last year just absolutely melted the course. And his power. So I'm really excited about seeing his power figures when he races this time because it's going to be scary what this boy can push out on that bike.
Could be the fastest half Ironman split in the country, you reckon? Hey,
Yeah. I mean, the bike is slightly short, sadly, but I could make it longer, but it would make it dangerous, and I don't want to make it dangerous for athletes, and I want to make it super simple. So it's slightly short, sadly, but um, you know that's what it has to be, unfortunately. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Joe's still got the fastest Ironman bike split in the world because I'm discounting the Roth bike split because the Roth bike split doesn't start and finish at the same place. And if you look at the elevation, the Roth bike split is downhill. If you look at the geography,
yeah.
so Joe Skipper starts and finishes. You don't have a time trial that is point to point. You start and finish at the same place. It makes it legal.
There you
So
go. Let's
Joe,
claim that for Joe. Let's claim Joe the
yeah,
fastest
well,
Ironman
bloody
bike
right.
split.
He has got it.
Yeah, too right.
He's got it because he starts and finishes at the same point. And averaging, I think, no, it was 304 watts. He was his normalized power, which is phenomenal. You
It's
know,
unbelievable, isn't it?
he's just,
How much? I mean, let's talk about Joe for a minute. What do you think his potential is in the sport? If everything goes as well as it can for him and he stays injury free, how far do you see him getting?
I've had good chats with Joe, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but Joe knows what he needs to do to make it to the next level, because I've never met anybody with the propensity to absorb training like he does, but also the intensity of the training. And when I've seen him train some really high end sessions, the man can hurt himself. Yeah, I've just never seen anything like it. He can suffer so much. Um, Joe can ride and run with the best of them. At the minute, he can't swim with the best of them, and the other pros on the circuit know that. And the dynamic of Ironman racing, and especially Kona, um, if he's giving 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes to the rest of the boys, even though Joe is matching them and riding quicker, he'll never catch them. It's just not going to happen because, you've only got to look at the footage of the pro racers of Ironman. You've only got to read, articles of, Macca and the like talking about, well, we created a group and we created a breakaway. There is a form of legalised drafting in the World Championships. It happens. It's a fact. And the pros do it, and the age groupers do it, because when you've got that many riders on a small bit of road, you cannot but do it. So this is why Joe needs to concentrate more on his swimming, I think, this winter, and really address that 4 or 5 minute deficit.
Yeah, if he can cut that down to a couple of minutes, he's going to be right on it, isn't he?
And he will, and he will scare the shit out of them, because he is a monster. He's an absolute monster. I mean, if I was 10 years younger and I was a better athlete, I think the most scariest feeling for me as an athlete would be Joe Skipper, catching me and catching me up on the bike and just going past me, like a rabid dog. That would send the fear of God through me. And there's athletes out there now who I know are thinking, well, he can't swim. And that's all they've got to hold on to, because they know he can ride and run. And he swims okay, but that okay ain't good enough to be world class. So I think
world champion. That's the thing, isn't it?
But his bike and run split is there, and he's still a young puppy. And I think if he addresses his swimming in the next couple of years, then there'll be a few pros going, bloody hell, this boy's on it. So yeah, he's got super potential, and he's a super nice chap, and he's got a tough training regime. He has a tough lifestyle, and he works damn hard. And there's nothing glamorous about what Joe's doing training wise. He just gets on with it. Trains every day, regularly, eats like a horse. Sleeps well, and he just trains hard. And he's young. So good for him. I've got the utmost respect for Joe, and I do like watching him race. Yeah, he's a beast. Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Hey, well, listen, man, thank you very much for your time. I don't want to take any more of your evening up. It's been really interesting talking to you. If people want to find out more about your race, the Rubicon or the Trident, what's the web address for that?
It is www.functionalfitnessevents. Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah, we'll stick a link to that in the show notes. And if anyone is interested in racing on the 30th of August, have you got slots open still?
I've got believe it or not, about 10 slots left.
Oh, there you go, getting quick. That's awesome. Listen, Mark, thanks again for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it, mate. Listen, guys, you've been listening to the Cup of Triathlon podcast. Have a great training and racing week, and we'll look forward to catching up with you all next week. Cheers now.